folks, grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys presents Tales of the Trophies, Season 4, Best of the Rest. I'm Mike with EJ. How's it going, pal?
Oh, vibes are real high right now. We have some high vibes.
You know what? Go ahead. Tell me what's got you vibing so high right now? Is it
you start the week, and this week has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, I will be traveling to the great state of Oregon.
That's right.
This weekend to watch some wonderful Big Ten after dark football, as well as a future Pac-12 matchup as well. So I'm super excited. So you have that. I'm ready to go. Got some exciting news related to that project or to that trip that I will not spoil right now for you guys, but I will just say you're gonna want to check our social on Friday. Just gonna say that you're gonna want to check it. So I was already riding high there. Then you have a Monday night game where the Lions offense, it returned. It was the return of the offense. So that was, you just hate to see Seattle lose. You just hate to see it. So that had me riding. I was already, this is Oregon week. Then you had the Lions, and then the gritty Tigers, the gritty Tigers. Not only just did something for the first time. It's only second time in MLB history, the first time in 50 years, being down. I think it was like 10 games under 500 in the beginning of August, and then they had the best record in baseball since then to catapult into the playoffs. And then game one of the wild card in Houston, they just go out and get that W, which is key because in a best of three series, the team that wins the first game has won 87% of.
Wow, that
series.
is a shocking statistic.
Yes, and it's and that's in any 3-game series in baseball, and then no one has lost a series since they implemented this new format in playoff baseball. Which I don't know if you knew there's a new format for both of us. It's been a long ass time.
Yeah, it actually has been
so
long. So I was actually just watching the Cueto video earlier today, reminiscing. So this is the anniversary of that, but yeah.
So I'm riding high.
Well, good, man. Good. I'm thrilled for you. I saw the Lions. I saw the highlights from the game. Did not stay up to watch it. I saw Jammo had a couple of nice plays, deep touchdown. I saw, something not so good, but Jackson Smith and Jigba, they tried to tackle him and he just would not be tackled. That was pretty crazy. I'm not going to bring you down on the vibes. Week's gotten off to a tough start. Did have a really great weekend. Had a wedding, officiated my 4th wedding, and I actually got a little treat here that I want to dip into for the listeners and for you. Thank you, Cord and Emily. Congratulations. Many happy returns. Thank you for letting me be such a big part of your big day. And thank you for being great friends. And thank you for this lovely bottle. Again, congratulations to you guys. Many, God grant you guys many years. And this is an Elijah Craig toasted barrel. I've never had it before. Apparently, it's one of those where it's like fairly common, but it's a little rare because it's hard to find. Can be hard to find. Oh, wow, that's like okay. The nose is very interesting. It's some caramel. Kind of smells like cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper, to be honest with you.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. Not really any alcohol, just cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper. But cheers.
I was just gonna say I'm rocking the last bumbleberry of the season. So
geez, cheers, bud. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So wait, don't bury this lead here. Did because it's cord, does that mean you went to the sweetest place on earth?
No. Actually, we went to We went to Lancaster, and that was the first time I've been there. I didn't know that. Oh, awesome! We went to Lancaster Central. If you're ever out in Lancaster, I know the thing is like Amish people, but like what they're known for. But like that Central Market is fantastic. Like great food, bunch of whoopie pies. It was fantastic.
What did you send me the picture of again?
Did I send you a picture of the pretzel, the soft pretzel? I had the best soft pretzel in the world. It was an Amish. There were so many of the little stands were Amish. Like there was Amish whoopie pies, Amish, cookies and stuff like that. So I got like half a dozen whoopie pies. Some whoopie pies that I've never seen an oatmeal chocolate chip whoopie pie. The best one I had was like a peanut butter cookie with Reese's Reese's Pieces and that peanut butter center. That was delicious. There's a bunch of like cool shops nearby. There's actually this girl came out of a shop as we were leaving Lancaster Market, and she's like, "Okay, I came down to tell you what's up there, and then I'm going back up. They got a bunch of stuff. They got a bunch of." She's like, "It's like a bookshop, a game shop. They have a bunch of D&D stuff up there." I'm like, "Oh," because I've been thinking about getting some dice and getting into D&D, but this I gotta tell you, with all my spare time, but this is incredible. It's like, just go a little bit more of that. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of oak. It's a toasted oak barrel. So, like, it's a lot of oak, a lot of caramel. Like, when you first you do it, it's like caramel and toffee. And then it's like swallowing the Home Depot. Just like it's just a big old oak taste in the mouth, which I like. I like that in my bourbon. So, I'll take it. Cheers. Thank you, Cord. This is excellent. So I'll save some for next time you come over, big guy.
Sounds great. It's been a while since I've had a whiskey, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gonna have one, but it's been a little stressful week around here. It was a real rough afternoon yesterday, so I wanted to, what? Let's have a drink because the vibes are so high for you. And I know not just with your trip, but the topic of this episode. So like, I want to keep things. Yeah. I want to bring it for you. So maybe I'll get drunk off of Elijah Craig for you this evening.
I think that sounds great. So why don't you take a couple more sips of that while I issue an apology? I'm gonna. I hope you remembered that you texted me this.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But this isn't going to be backhanded. But this is also going to be an apology.
Yep.
Plus a, little pat on the back. So
okay.
Bama, Georgia.
Bama, Georgia.
Wait, hold on. Going. Hold on. Okay.
Continue, sir.
Okay,
Roll Tide.
Yeah. So I thought at the beginning of the year when we went through all of our previews, I thought Georgia was not going to be good enough to survive the schedule they have. And one of the things I thought, not to say they were bad, but I thought of the four main, the top opponents that they have to play in the SEC, three of them on the road, that they were only going to win two of those. And so I had thought beginning of the year that the one that I thought they would win on the road was in Tuscaloosa. And mainly for that, again, was because I didn't think. I thought Alabama.
You didn't think. You can stop right there. That you didn't think. You can stop right there. But go ahead.
Yeah, you did exactly.
Actually, I'm not. Yeah. I want to hear more. Go ahead.
You didn't exactly put up much of a fight when I didn't think, months ago. But
well, I let it play itself out. But go ahead. I definitely remember you saying, "Who are they going to throw the ball to?" And I mentioned 17-year-old true freshman Ryan Williams, and you're like, "A freshman? A freshman?"
And this is where the root of my apology wants to come. DeBoer has proven to be a winner, and I did think it was going to take some time in their scheme, but he's obviously helped Milroe, and Milroe has a real chance if he can get some further tutelage, I mean, it's one thing to win the Heisman, but like he might have a real shot at the league if he can continue to improve. But the one thing was I just didn't think their skill position players, there's no evidence, right? They've always had 5-star kids. They've always had, the top transfers, the top recruiting classes. But the last couple of years, those guys just haven't shown up. And boy, oh boy, did Ryan Williams show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one thing to do it against like South Florida. Yeah. It's a whole other thing to do it on, a national stage with everybody watching. Yeah, I mean, a couple things on the game. So, one, I was texting everyone like, wow, after the Steelers win last week against the Chargers and this game, it's like the most stress-free football I've ever had in my life. And then all of a sudden it's 34-33 and I'm living on a prayer.
Yeah.
I've watched so many tweets and cuts and super cuts of that catch and like just all the stuff around the game. Do you know that he caught the ball with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock? You can even see the game clock in the bathroom, the game clock in the background. It says 2:26. Why is that pertinent? I'm looking right now at my picture of Devonta Smith catching the ball on 2nd and 26 against Georgia in the 2016-2017 national championship. So Georgia just can't escape 2:26. It was incredible. I mean, I think everyone says it's that little split move that he does. Like the catch is incredible, but the like throw on the brakes, cause them to split, float in the air, literally float in the air, turn around, and then take off like Tyreek Hill down the sidelines.
Yeah,
to the touch, incredible. I think interesting point about Milroe. I do think that DeBoer has done something to simplify the game for him. Great play calling all around. Like I think on offense, on defense just got gassed. Like they were out there for so long at the end of the game that I think that they just got gassed.
Yeah, the second half offense for Bama, I get it. I feel like it's got to be really tough to continue to. Obviously, Georgia's good enough to make some adjustments, but at the same time, it's like, you kind of get lulled into a sense of like things are going super well, and then they stop going super well.
Yeah.
And but that first half, I mean,
they did whatever they want. Well,
perfection.
So what I have a question about with Milroe, and I don't know if this is a coaching thing. Like, I don't know if they told him to do this or if like the clock management, like they were still running, like not quite hurry up. Like he was not draining that clock down. And I don't know if that's like, I mean, it's either just incredibly stupid clock management and like someone needs to like, Jalen has a headset on, like tell him, hey, run this clock down, like take the play clock down to 0 when you snap it. Or, it could just be really like, listen, this is the style of football we play. This is the style of offense we play. Let's just play our style of offense and things will work out in the end. It did, but boy, oh boy, it almost didn't. So, crazy game. I mean,
it's classic. It turned into a classic.
Game of the year.
It started as wow. Like, I mean, obviously for Alabama fans, it was awesome, but it just, for, just an outside viewer like myself.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, this is over. I mean, I was happy because I bet Bama money line. So that didn't bother me, but yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, like, Georgia isn't as good as people think, and Alabama's maybe a little bit better than people thought. And then it turned into like, oh, this is a classic. And then it was just like snowballing. I think that's the most impressive thing, right? It snowballed on Alabama. And before you know it, you're like, is Georgia winning right now?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? I'm thinking like, you were already, wishy-washy on DeBoer to begin with, and it's Saban field and Saban's there. And it's like, Mike's about to be done. And then
everyone's like that. And everyone's memeing Saban in the booth, just like sitting there not reacting when it's 27-0. Yeah. And it's like, that's why. Because like he never stops coaching and you never know what can happen. He actually said on game day, which I've come kind of like I've gone a whole 360 on this game because like, at first when they started losing, I was like, You know what? Good lesson learned. Saban said on game day this morning. Sometimes the killer to your program is when you go out, you don't play well, and you win. Because then you don't really want to practice. You're just like, well, because that's hard to coach. It's like, well, we won. Like, who cares that we almost had an epic collapse, biggest comeback in Georgia football program history, to the biggest doofus looking terrible. You got that right, by the way. Hey, I want to commend you for your Carson Beck takes. Guy's not good, not a gamer. Not this is your first round pick. I went from saying it would have been better had we lost because it'd be a good lesson learned that we can use later in the season. Now Kirby has that lesson learned that he can give his team. That swung like, I don't know, like 10 units in my direction from gambling. No, it was a 20 unit swing because I had that and I had it as part of a parlay. And I had a great Saturday, 9-1 to the evening games. Ended up 12-6 overall. It all fell apart in the second half, much like Bama did. But still 12-6 on the day, cashing 2 big parlays. I needed that. I needed that Saturday. That's like I've been for the past all this season, most of last season. It was like I finished up 2 games or down 2 games. I'm just right in the middle, not getting crushed, not doing well. Need a Saturday like that. Up a whole bunch of units, feeling great. And a game of the decade, game of the century. Chalk in the Bama win column. I'm happy. I'm happy as can be right now. Very nervous going forward for this season. I think I don't want to say this too loud. I think this Saturday is going to get a little wonky. I think this weekend's going to be a little wonky. I looked at the schedule. You got some real interesting games on the schedule. I think that Kentucky Ole Miss was kind of just the start of it. I think Kentucky's a team that's actually might be good. Almost beat Georgia. Did beat Ole Miss. Is Ole Miss good or is Ole Miss bad? There's a lot of games on the schedule. In fact, Dan texted me and he was like, look at the board this weekend. I'm not impressed after what happened last weekend. I'm like, you shut your mouth. You disrespect the board. The board will hear you because there's a lot of games out there this weekend. I think this is going to be a bloodbath weekend. I think it's going to be Red October. I think that it's going to be an absolute bloodbath of the weekend for top 25 teams.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that something I tend to look at, but I can sometimes forget to do it. But I try to do it as much as I can. Is you want to look ahead to the next week because I can tell you off the top of my head, I believe. So it's a good point because what are some of these teams waiting for next week? So a good example would be Oregon and Michigan State. Oregon has Ohio State coming into town and arguably, the biggest game in aughts in history coming next week. So, you don't want to look ahead. You have Penn State USC is next week. You have
and UCLA is coming to Penn State this week, right?
Right. So it's you don't want to look ahead. The Red rivalries next weekend. You have
SMU's going to 22 Louisville. Louisville who lost. SMU they beat Florida State, but let's see.
Purdue has to go to Death Valley.
Purdue to Wisconsin. Honestly, I think Ole Miss could be up for that game. That's what I'm worried about. Purdue's going to Wisconsin. A very hot Pitt team's going to North Carolina. Let's see. Iowa's going to Ohio State. You talk about look aheads. Iowa's going to Ohio State. If this gets into
So I'm just thinking. So if you're Ole Miss, so you just got beat. Now you have to go to a South Carolina team that's proven it can be frisky. And then you have LSU next week. Now, I don't think LSU is anything crazy, but I remember thinking when I was looking at the schedule, it's like that's one of those like potential schedule losses, right? Having to go to Death Valley potentially at night, like you're gonna have to play one of your better games to beat even an inferior opponent on the road. So it's like, so does this start to snowball in Ole Miss, right? Like, I don't know. It's just interesting when you start to look at some of that. Hoosiers
have Nebraska at home next week. They go to Northwestern this week. Right. Not that Northwestern's, a strong team, but if you're talking about look-aheads and Indiana trying to handle their business, are they reading too much of their press clippings right now?
Yeah, no, I think we're getting to like the core of the schedule now, right? Yeah. Where like we can start to really revisit over the next, say, 3 weeks what our predictions were.
Rutgers is coming to Nebraska this week too, by the way. That's another.
So then you start to look at, okay, so the 12th has like the Red River rivalries, the big one. Then the following week, I was texting you about the 19th. I mean, okay, that's Georgia at Texas. Mm-hmm. That is Alabama at Tennessee. Like you're gonna start to get some of these separating games now, and really get a clearer view on how some of these conferences are going to start to shake out.
Trojans are going to Minnesota this week. God, yeah. I mean, I think it's going to get real wonky. Oh, Miami's going to Cal for game day, 10:30 p.m. kickoff. Game day is going to be there. The Calgorithm is firing on all cylinders right now. There's cores on fire in a data center processing all their memes somewhere. There's a poor guy with like long gray hair and a ponytail trying to put fire out on all these servers for all the memes the Cal is generating right now.
I wouldn't want to be Miami, to be honest with you, having to go across the country after,
especially after that game.
They get the win, but that's a lot of emotion, a lot of they fought hard to get to that point. So I wouldn't want to go out to Cal, Cal at night.
This is a wonky like lineup here. Like it just feels like there's no game worth watching, which means it's going to be chaos. Mizzou goes to College Station. I mean, Texas A&M's not very good, but like,
why are they favored?
They're favored. A&M's favored, which is good. If Mizzou was favored, I would actually be. I don't know about that, but yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's tricky, right? It'll be interesting. I had a couple of games that I looked at early in the week that I kind of like circled. Some of the lines have kind of moved unfavorably, so I got to kind of circle back. But there was a handful, but it's going to be a tricky one. This one's going to really be, for me this week, probably more of that line seems funny versus like, I know that I feel good about this team against that team. It's like, Vegas is trying to tell me something with some of these lines. And it's like, usually I lean in when things don't make sense.
Yeah. There's some bait out there. That's bait. It's a trap. All the memes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready to transition?
I am. I can look at this schedule all night. I might look at it all night. Yeah. Am I ready to transition?
Yes.
Well, no, I don't plan on. I'm happy being a boy. I'm happy with that. I don't need to transition.
Go next topic.
Okay. Gotcha. We were talking about Cal, so I didn't know.
Which is someone. That's funny that you say that. So someone. I should have sent it to you. I saw it on Instagram. Someone had AI generate 2 players on the field. I believe it was potentially the color combinations that Cal and Miami are going to wear. But what they had was, Cal had a yellow jersey on, and where it usually says Cal, it said woke. And then Miami was white jerseys, and it said Coke.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Woke versus Coke. Yeah. That's This is gonna be a great game. This is gonna be. I hope Cal shows up in force for game day. I was looking at the rest of their schedule. I don't know. Like I know, like Virginia's never hosted a game day. Is Rutgers on that list? That'd be hard to believe Rutgers never hosting a game day. Let me see.
Is it?
Schools that have never.
Is it hard to believe?
Call it.
I mean,
the Shiano thing, Rutgers is on the list. But they had Shiano back. If Rutgers gets a couple wins, they're going to host a bold prediction. Rutgers hosts a game day within the next 2 years. This season, next season, they will host a game day.
I would say now, but in the past, and I think part of it was they were buried in one of the best divisions in all of college football in the Big Ten East. So
yeah,
it was hard for an Indiana or Rutgers to really get Illinois to a game day level.
Well, okay, so I said Virginia, I said Rutgers, and then I just said Illinois. Do you know the other two schools? One's a Big Ten school, one's an ACC school.
That have never hosted game day?
Yes.
Wake Forest?
Nope. They hosted because they went to the Orange Bowl back in the day.
Hartman, I guess.
Yeah. No, not Hartman. Well, I think they did actually. They might have been there during Hartman, but whenever 06 they went to the Orange Bowl.
Who wouldn't have? I mean, Matt Ryan was up in Chestnut Hill, so they've probably done one time.
Yep.
I imagine NC State has probably hosted it more recently.
New additions to both conferences.
I'm not even thinking about those. Stanford had to have with Harbaugh and some of these.
Yeah, newer, not this most recent round.
ACC. Who was added? SMU.
Mm-mm.
Guess that might have been the newest round.
You're way off when you guess SMU.
ACC newer. I always hate these stupid schools.
Used to be a Big Ten or Big East school. Both of these used to be Big East schools. Or wait, no. What? So the ACC school used to be a Big East school. The Big Ten school used to be an ACC school.
Syracuse,
yes, that is the ACC school. And then a former ACC school, now a Big Ten school.
Oh, really? I guess that makes sense. Terrapins, they stink.
Yep. That's right. I'm
trying to think of what game day would even look at. I've been to College Park a couple times.
Yeah, me too. That'd be a weird look. I went to a football camp at the University of Maryland before my senior year. Cool. Got a bunch of Under Armour stuff. That was great. But yeah, I think out of those 5 schools, Rutgers next 2 seasons will have a game day there. Virginia, Syracuse, Maryland, Illinois. Well, Illinois, I mean, Brett Bielema keeps doing his thing. Maybe they'll end up there too. They want to chop down that list.
Illinois stinks.
Fair.
Bielema and his stupid moo-moo.
Harsh on the moo-moo.
It's the truth.
All right. Should we get into the episode? You've been wanting to change topics for a while now. I keep delaying.
Yeah, you do. Sure. I'd love to.
Sorry,
guys.
I'm trying to have playful banner and keep the vibes high. Jeez, oh man, AJ.
Guilty with the story.
Guilty as charged.
All right, Derek.
With the stories. Oh.
See, now you got me searching for fucking Rutgers games that they could host this year at game day.
No.
I mean, if they can get to, if Illinois doesn't end up being moo central and poo all over themselves, and Rutgers can get through the majority of this schedule, which they can, I could see that second to last week. I mean, Illinois at Rutgers. If both teams are ranked by still ranked,
yeah, they won't have much.
Ranked.
Yeah, they won't have much. October 12th and October 19th are out for both teams, given the other games they're going on. Yeah, I could see 11-23 being the that's that week 12. I could see that being the one.
Or maybe, like you said, if they end up finishing this year with maybe like 3 losses, do they get an early one next year? I'd have to see if they have any special non-cons coming to town or something like that. That could be something. But
yeah.
All right, now that you've got me off track, let's get back. Let's get to the trophy. What are we?
Yes.
What are we? 30 minutes in. Hi everyone. If you've made it this long, we are going to get to the trophy. So
this is why the people join. This is why they join. Plus, it gives me time to get all liquored up. So
you're either already getting ready to turn this off because you just love the banter at the beginning. Potentially you fast forward because you're like, what the hell? I want to get to the megaphone, and we haven't gotten to the megaphone yet. Or you're just one of our listeners that just loves the whole gambit. They just love it all. And
they're here for the soup and breadsticks and salad, and they stick around for the tour of Italy for the main course. They'll even hang out at the very end, get that chocolate lasagna, have themselves a great day, because when you're here, you're family.
Yeah, you had that was that felt scripted. It wasn't, but that was pretty impressive. No.
I'm drinking. I'm drinking whiskey. This is what happens. This is my creative juice.
I can't wait for the description, because you're going to be in a sweet zone by the end of this to get us a nice.
I should just type
episode
it right at the end of this. Yeah.
All right, the megaphone. This is one of my favorites. Vibes are just staying. What a lucky week this is for the vibes to continue, because this is one of my all-time favorite rivalries. This is up there for me as far as it being a rivalry trophy that I've grown up with, that I always looked forward to. Not necessarily the trophy itself, but when I was a kid, but the game itself was always one that I was really up there for me, for me with the Michigan game. So Megaphone, it's Michigan State versus Notre Dame. It's just lovely. I hated when the Big Ten got in a fight with Notre Dame and they stopped wanting to play with us. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But do you know what this trophy looks like?
Yeah, I do. I am very familiar with the Megaphone.
Okay. I will say, though, when you hear the megaphone, that's not what I think of, right? Like, it makes sense when you're like, oh, okay, that's a megaphone, but that's not what comes to mind when I think of a megaphone, right? I think of
really
no, I think of, like, cop.
Oh, that's a bullhorn.
Is it though? Like, that you talk through?
The one with the walkie-talkie thing attached to it?
That's a
bullhorn. That's a bullhorn. Yeah, that's the cop thing that's referred to as a bullhorn.
But see, I think a bullhorn is like the one that you just like literally have.
That's an air horn.
Is it?
This is my this is educating EJ segment on what the proper names of things are. An air horn is the thing where you press the button and it makes the loud noise. A bullhorn is what you think. So that's an air horn, which you thought was a bullhorn. A bullhorn, which you thought was a megaphone, is the thing that has the mic attached to it that through electricity amplifies your voice. A megaphone is the thing that cheerleaders yell into.
I don't believe you.
I
do believe you.
Google it.
But I
if you just Google air horn, bullhorn, megaphone, all the things that I said will be true.
Will you also Google megaphone while I start going on about this, please?
Google megaphone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, but it's not. That's a bullhorn.
It is universal, so it can be one or the other. I bet you it's probably a regional
so
thing.
that you could use it as a megaphone without the thing. Well, so I think of the typical if you look at the top, cheerleader megaphone is what I think of. This thing is a bullhorn.
You're not wrong. I'm saying I think more people than you would think when you were to say what is a megaphone about a bullhorn. And I think it's because, according to Google, people use them interchangeably, or there are people that you Google megaphone and it comes up megaphone or bullhorn. You're probably right technically, but I must not be the only one that thinks that. And I'm glad.
I mean, I also grew up in Pittsburgh where we have wonky names for everything. So, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I did go to a liberal arts college, so I know some things about words. I was in freshman honors comp, so suck it.
So the history of this rivalry. The first game between these two schools was in 1897, with Notre Dame winning 34-6, and Notre Dame won the 15 of the first 17 games. This game has been played 79 times and was played annually between 1959 and 2013. So there was a really good stretch of it being an annual rivalry, even though Notre Dame is an independent. They've always been independent. They had like a partnership similar to what they do now with the ACC. They had that with the Big Ten for years and years and years, which made a ton of sense geographically. I think there was always talk of them joining the Big Ten, and the only thing that kept them from doing that was their TV deal with NBC.
Buttload of TV money. Yep.
Yes. And I will say, though, this was interesting. Michigan State is second among all-time Notre Dame opponents in total wins over the Irish, trailing only USC.
I was going to say USC.
Yes. Notre Dame. Well,
no, go. No, I'm just.
It's in the. I would have, but then I was like, it's in the document that this part of it I don't hide from you. So.
Oh my God, they should They should join that. I'm sure we'll get to this, but they should join. Oh, actually. Ooh, this is very interesting. Remind me to talk about all of the Notre Dame rivalries at some point.
Yeah, we still have one left to talk about.
Oh, do we?
We do.
Well,
actually, we just got done talking. The number one opponent in total wins.
That's right, the Joel Shillelagh. Yeah. Which I will be playing this year as the head coach of USC. So,
so Notre Dame leads in this series overall, 47 wins to 29 losses to 1 tie. So why don't you scroll down and tell the people what the megaphone looks like?
So interesting, because in my mind, I picture something different than what the trophy actually looks like. I definitely, in my mind, picture a megaphone, right? A cheerleader to make it very clear for the listeners, a cheerleader megaphone. So there's no, it's just a big cone, a big long cone. In my mind, I had it as Notre Dame on one side with their colors and their logo, and then Michigan State with the state or Spartan S in green on the other side. I did not know about this red section in the middle. It looks like that is for the. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So it is Notre Dame on one side and Michigan State on the other side, with the Notre Dame logo and colors and Michigan State logo and colors. But there's a red stripe that goes down the middle that has the year listed on it, painted in white, and then it has the score on the Notre Dame side, whatever they scored, and the score for the Michigan State side on the other side. And it does sit on top of a wooden base with a plaque that says the Megaphone Trophy and probably a bunch of words about the meaning of the Megaphone Trophy, and then a picture of the original Megaphone Trophy because they ran out of space to write more years and scores. So it looks like that they have created a new megaphone since 2002 and put it on top of this plaque. So when I think of it in my mind, or wooden base. In my mind, I don't think of the wooden base. I just think of the megaphone itself and like carrying that around. I don't think of the wooden base, but that is cool. I like that they have a picture of the original one. So like, it's just proof of like, hey, we've played this since what, 1898, did you say? Or 1897, 1897 with all of the scores on there. So that's cool. I like that. That's pretty. Oh, and the original one The Michigan State side was actually white with green letters. The current version is green with white letters. Interesting.
Yes. So the trophy itself was
it's a handsome trophy.
Was created in 1949. So the alumni clubs of Notre Dame and Michigan State decided that the rivalry needed a trophy and introduced the Megaphone back in 1949. So Notre Dame leads the series since then, only 33 wins to 27 losses to 1 tie. So
something to be said about having a trophy, making it tighter.
Yes. Yeah, or just, Michigan State being Division I and now being an agriculture college, a lot of
that helps too.
A lot of schools like to count, those wins against farmers, and then once Michigan State became, funded at a similar level, or at least a respectable level, they became a little bit more. So as you had mentioned, the trophy, the Notre Dame side is blue, the Michigan State side is green, and the years of the games and the team's respective scores running down the middle in the red. And this trophy is the third trophy, as the 2 prior trophies no longer have space for the respective games. So that's the 2 that you're seeing in that picture on the wood base. And then the plaque itself, I am zooming in, and so I think I can read this. Surprisingly enough, none of this is written in an article, which is stupid. So, since 1949, the winner of the Michigan State Notre Dame game has been presented the Megaphone Trophy, originally sponsored jointly by the Detroit alumni clubs of both institutions. This trophy was designed and created through the efforts of John B. Pingle is what it looks like, of Michigan State. He was an alumni of 1939, it looks like. And Edward C. Roney Jr., who was a Notre Dame grad of 1943 for their alumni clubs. So it was credited to 2 individuals specifically.
Look at Detroit with a big contribution to society there. And that actually was going to clear up one of my questions, because in the picture of the original trophy, all I can see, it says club. Now I can see it says club. I couldn't really make it out, but I deduced it's club based on what you said. Club of Detroit and Michigan State. So the original trophy at the bottom must have had the alumni club, Notre Dame Club of Detroit, and Michigan State Alumni Club of Detroit. So that's pretty cool. Nice. Look at Detroit making a positive impact on our society. That's good stuff right there.
So I couldn't talk about this rivalry without talking about what has been dubbed the game of the century. And especially since this game of the century happened in 1966, and this rivalry has not been played since 2017 because of what we had talked about with Notre Dame deciding to do their non-conference deal with the ACC and not the Big Ten anymore. So they did announce, and I sent you this earlier this year, that there is going to be a home and a home in 2026 and 2027, marking the 60th anniversary of the game of the century. So the 1966 Notre Dame Michigan State football game is considered one of the greatest and most controversial games in college football history.
Let's see, because I feel like we just saw Game of the Century Saturday night. So I actually have no concept of the Game of the Century. So you tell me.
But I will say, though, there was no controversy, though. I feel like there's got to be a controversy.
That's true. There really wasn't. We just showed up and kicked their asses. So, yeah.
So this game was played at Spartans Stadium on November 19th in 1966. Notre Dame was coached by our regime. I say this name terribly. I know they do.
Hold on a sec. You just broke up. EJ, you just broke up there a little bit. So I think that you said Ara Parseghian. It was the Notre Dame coach, right? Parseghian was the coach.
Yes, and I was gonna say I might have mispronounced it. And Michigan State was coached by their legendary coach Duffy Doherty. Both are legends at their schools. I think we had talked about Ara in the past with one of the other trophies that we had talked about. So Michigan State entered the contest 9-0, ranked number 2, and Notre Dame was 8-0, ranked number 1. So the controversy around this game was surrounding Parisien's decision to run the ball on 5 of 6 plays in the last 1.5 minutes in a 10-10 tie. So this was echoing one of the great idioms of Notre Dame lore. College football expert Dan Jenkins left off his article on the game for ESPN, sarcastically saying that Parisian chose to tie one for the Gipper.
Real quick, Parisian.
Parisian. What did I say? Parisian?
Yeah, he's not a citizen of Paris, France. He is Parisian.
I mean, he potentially could have. I don't know that we don't know that for a fact.
I'm pretty sure that a guy named Ara Parisian is not a resident of France, but continue.
So, what Jenkins mentions in the article is that Parisian felt arrogantly sure that Notre Dame could win the polls with a tie, not just over Michigan State, but also over an undefeated and untied Alabama. And he was right. He was right. The late season match between the top-ranked teams was billed as that year's national championship game, and after the tie following the final game versus USC, Notre Dame was selected as national champions in the AP poll and the coaches poll, and was awarded the Grantland Rice Trophy by the Football Writers Association of America. So, ton of bullshit. The National Football Foundation split their national championship, also awarding Michigan State as well as Notre Dame. But I think I have some other feelings next about when other people get to decide who's a champion instead of being on the field. So until his death in 2017, Parisian defended his end of game strategy, and according to the article that I mentioned from Jenkins, Parisian cited his team's field position and the dynamics of the game as reasons why he hadn't played more aggressively. He said, quote, "We'd fought hard to come back and tie it. After all, I didn't want to risk giving it to them cheap. They get reckless and it could cost them the game. I wasn't going to do a jackass thing like that at that point. My starting quarterback, starting center, starting left tackle, and all my top guys were over on the bench with me. We hadn't completed a pass in the last 7 or 8 attempts," end quote.
Parisian never will put Rudy in the game. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah,
he said he'd let Rudy dress. He left. Dan Devine became the coach. The whole thing, which Montana calls as a joke of Rudy getting on the field, which is probably closer to the actual truth. But Parisian would never let his ass on the field. A guy that running the ball to secure a tie would never let 4 foot tall Rudy Rudiger on the field. If that's his attitude, they were smacking Georgia Tech in that last game too.
So another interesting fact about that game too was the starting running back Nick Eddy was out entirely after hurting his shoulder by slipping on ice while getting on the train getting off the train in East Lansing.
Oh, no way.
Yep. So after it says, but not necessarily a result of Eddie's injury while embarking from the train. Notre Dame football never traveled to away games by train again. Both teams now make the 160-mile trip by bus.
Well, yeah, because who the hell travels by train anymore anyways, but
so that's the classic. I thought it would be fun because there is one game seared into my memory.
Yes, I was going to ask this question. What's your favorite game?
Yes, so my favorite game happened on September 18th in 2010. So let me just paint this picture. Interesting enough,
EJ, what was life like back in 2010?
Well, I will let you know. So life back in 2010 was me being a sophomore, junior? No, this would have been my junior year.
Yeah,
so I would have been I was a junior. It was the beginning of the school year, September. I was a first-time RA, actually. I was in the big boy.
What were your residents like?
Well, one of them turned into my wife. And what's actually hilarious about this is September 18th is her birthday, and we had started dating in November of 2010. So I don't think we were dating at this point. And had we been dating, I probably would have missed this game. How's that? I know. I couldn't believe it when I saw the actual date.
Yeah.
So let me just say, this is who we have on the field. We have a guy named Kirk Cousins, and at tailback, a guy named Le'Veon Bell. And a couple of receivers that some people might not be familiar with. Keyshawn Martin, I think he ended up going pro, was maybe a Patriot for a little bit, more of like a punt returner type receiver. BJ Cunningham, one of the iconic string of good college receivers that Michigan State had put out at the time. And on the other side, you're looking at Dane Christ, and then a couple of guys named Theo Riddick, Kyle Rudolph, and Michael Floyd. So some big time NFL players that played quite a few years.
What 2010 was Manti Te'o on that team?
I don't know actually, because I was only looking at offensive players. He
might have been 2009, 2011. He would have been either, I don't know if so, because they played Bama in 2013, 2012 or 2013. So he would certainly been on the team. We don't need to talk about him anymore and his fake girlfriend. But yeah, he would have been on that team. I don't know if he would have been a contributor, but he would have certainly been on the team.
So the game starts first quarter, 7-0 Notre Dame. By the halftime, Michigan State had tied it up, right? So this is just getting the feeling of a classic game. So then Michigan State goes up in the third quarter is a big quarter. So you had Michigan State go up 14-7, Notre Dame tie it, Michigan State go back up 21-14, and then right at the end of the quarter, Notre Dame ties it again, 21-21. Fourth quarter comes around, and Notre Dame goes up early. So I don't know what happened. I didn't go too deep because the part I really remember is coming up. But,
hold on a sec. What were you doing while you're watching this game? Like, you're an RA. Were you just sitting around like in your room making sure that these kids don't get into too much trouble? You're also a junior. You wouldn't have, I don't know if you were, no, you weren't 21 yet. So you wouldn't have been at the bar unless you're in an underage spot. Like, what's that bar up in the Hawaiian place? Or the Stone. The Stone has that beach bar, right? So were you at the Stone or were you?
No. Our listener Chad Ball was not the bouncer at the time yet, who may or may not have let some people in through the basement on occasion. No, so I was.
Chad's gonna have sleepless nights now, thinking that this is gonna get out somehow. He's gonna get arrested for letting. He honestly is. He's such a warrior, Chad. It's okay. No one is going to come arrest you for letting underage kids into a bar 15 years ago. It's fine.
Allegedly, right? Allegedly.
But no,
I was just here to say I had never had the pleasure. I can truthfully say I had never had the pleasure of experiencing that. But there was some rumors out there, Chad. There's some rumors.
Yeah. Lock your doors, pal. Hug your kids tight. You're going to jail, buddy. Facilitating underage drinking. They're going to slap the cuffs on you 14 years after the fact.
So then at the beginning, what was I doing? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I just remember the moment. Like, I don't remember where exactly I was. If I had to guess, I would have been on campus. I probably would have been probably in my apartment, to be honest with you. I was probably just watching. But Notre Dame goes up,
making sure the kids don't get into trouble. Anyways,
it's the beginning of the year, and I was the RA for people my age, so I think there wasn't too much problem. The other side story. Now you're deviating. The problem for me.
This is why the people listen. Leave a comment if you hate my deviations. I'm drinking whiskey right now. This is what I do. I go on tangents.
So the problem for me that year as an RA was, so how how the school, how Mercyhurst did it was you had housing points, right? So it was actually a pretty cool thing about the university is if you got in trouble, even if it was like legal issues, for the most part, like legal issues by like mainly underage drinking, they wanted to handle it on campus and with the school, right? They very rarely
private institution. That makes total sense.
Yeah, they very rarely wanted to include the Erie PD, although Erie PD was a part of police and safety, right? They did have actual officers that were patrolling, and if you were an asshole, they would treat you as such. But if you weren't, they typically would have you do community service. May or may not have gotten in trouble with that one time. And yeah, I had to clean good old Maine, a haunted building at midnight.
Did you see anything?
So after getting in trouble my freshman year in my dorm room. So but yeah, so they typically let you handle it, you know, on campus. So what they do is they would give you housing points, and then they would deduct housing points. But the housing points primarily were used to give you seniority over where you wanted to live. So when you were picking where you wanted to live, because Mercyhurst is a very small school, so I'd say like now I think it's almost everyone has to live on campus. But even when I went there, it was usually like 75 to 25 split of people living on campus versus not. So
did you guys have like a house cup? This is like Harry Potter. You had like individual little glasses filled with like jewels that like 5 points deducted from calendar for
yes. And the thing about it was the junior and senior year like housing apartments were there was a very big distinction between some of the nicer ones and some of the shittier ones. So basically, they were on a hill, and it was like the bottom of the hill closer to the road was the ghetto, and then the further up the road it got nicer and nicer.
EJ, it's 2024. You can't say ghetto anymore.
Okay, sorry. It was you know, the bad part of the street, you know, of the buildings. Although I will say your wife had a terrible time at her building that was supposed to be a nice one when they had bed bugs. So
that's right. I forget about that all the time.
So anyway,
terrified to this day.
The problem was so how
she cleans our sheets. Anyways, go ahead.
How they do it is so the obviously the more housing points you get, the first dibs you get, and what ends up happening is they don't tell RAs their placements so that your friends can't just choose your building, right? So RAs get placed last, and by dumb circumstance and luck, three apartments worth of my building, which there's probably, who was I in charge of? 3, 6, 9, 9. So there's probably like 3 of them were my best friends, separate apartments. Then your wife and her roommate were also my residents, and then my wife's friends that I obviously met were also my residents, and then there was like a couple randoms.
So you used your position of power to find your wife, you son of a bitch.
I guess so, kind of. She actually, it was actually a funny story. She made a mistake. They weren't supposed to be down there. She screwed up. They had good housing points. They should have been elsewhere. But you think it would be awesome, like, yay, you know, your friends are, you know, your residents. That sounds great.
Your friends?
Wrong.
Wrong.
No way. When people decide to break into each other's apartments and prank each other, they get upset. And they want accountability, and then they come to you. Yeah, and obviously,
Ellie Love gets her panties frozen. She wants answers, and she will have none.
Yeah, or you know, when some of this underage drinking or throwing parties, putting people in the attic of the building happen, you know, they want you to look the other way, and that can, you know, get you in trouble for looking the other way. So yeah, great times. Actually, was not very fun at times. Some of it was, some of it was not.
You know what? We can always rehash this conversation whenever, because 2 of your residents were former guests of this show. Or wait, 3. What was our Willie? Dia was Nick a resident too?
No, Nick had already left.
Okay, so then there you go. So we'll bring our Willie and Chris. Oh, Arlo was on the show, right? Was he? Was he not?
No.
Okay,
I don't
we'll have
think
to bring
so.
him on to talk about
Whiskey
it.
Joe. He
Oh
was
yeah,
one,
that's
and then
true.
we have quite a few other
So,
listeners that are also were my residents. So yeah, great times. But getting back to now the game that I just talked about.
Fourth quarter. I'm sorry.
Fourth quarter. Let's bring it back. End of the third quarter. We're 21-21. Beginning of the fourth quarter. I don't know. We must have turned the ball over because it was very quick or went 3 and out very quickly. Notre Dame goes up 28-21. But Michigan State, with about 7 minutes left in the game, tie it up. Overtime. Okay? Overtime.
28-28. Overtime.
Notre Dame gets the ball first. This is the modern day college rules minus after the third overtime you have to do 2-point conversions, but it's
just going back and forth. Ball to 25. Yeah.
Yep. Notre Dame gets the ball first. Have to kick field goal. Okay. Michigan State gets the ball. It's do or die. At this point in time, they're undefeated. And Michigan State's undefeated. It's early though. It's non-con. They're 2-0, 3-0. This is before they start Big Ten play. Notre Dame, I believe, had one loss at that point. They were 1-1, and Michigan State has to, first, second, third, don't get a first down, have to settle, right? So it's fourth down. They're lining up for a field goal. Oh wait, they fake the field goal. And the punter stands up like a boss and throws a 25-yard dime to the tight end, Gant, to walk-off win, 34-31. That was one of the first magical moments of Mark D'Antonio's era. And if you guys have followed D'Antonio, he is not a risk taker at all, but he would throw.
My jaw was on the floor. I had no recollection of this game. My jaw's on the floor because D'Antonio is the type of guy to just be like, what was it? I don't know if you remember the distance on fourth down, if it was fourth and whatever, but
it was a 25-yard pass, so it would have been 35 yards plus the 7. It would have been about like a 42-yarder, so nothing crazy. It was a clear day.
But if it was like 4th and 2, D'Antonio would be the guy to be like, all right, we're gonna run it. Like we're gonna just big man get out there, bully football, and we're just gonna get this first down. For him to have the stones to go for, I mean, I think that
this wasn't
a fake field goal. Was
a first down play. This was a touchdown play.
Yeah, it had to be. I mean, if you're calling that play, you're trying to win the game right now. And there's so much for me, if it's like fourth down in that type of situation, you should just line up and go for it. Because so much, I know that listen. I know that we every football team practices these types of plays at least once a week as part of their team session, usually on Thursdays or whatever your day of the week is where you're taking it easy. And you practice these types of plays, but what? I don't know. How often are you going to use them, really, whenever you have talent on your team? Wow. And then was that the year Sparty went on to win?
No, it's not. Spartans would go on to finish 11-1 that year. Their only loss would come in at Kinnick Stadium, and they were tied and awarded co-champions with Wisconsin. However, they got royally fucked by the playoff committee, formerly known as the goddamn BCS.
They got screwed by
BCS gave Wisconsin the Rose Bowl bid that year.
Yeah.
Even though Michigan State beat Wisconsin that season 34-24.
Yeah. Yep.
What?
Yep.
So Wisconsin would go on to lose in the Rose Bowl to TCU, and Michigan State would lose to a scrub of a team from Tuscaloosa, 49-7 in the Citrus Bowl with, terrible players like Mark Ingram and Julio Jones. You want some offensive linemen that had successful NFL seasons? Sure. Chance Warmack, DJ Fluker. Oh, you want some defenders? Oh, why not Upshaw, Hightower, Barron, Darius, Kirkpatrick.
Drake Kirkpatrick. Yep. Yeah.
Fuck team. fucked.
That team really.
That might have been actually the first. That might have been the last year before the Big Ten champion. Like they created the Big Ten championship. So that was actually more of a recent thing. It never had a championship game, and it finally did get one, and it had the wonky legends leaders for a little bit, and it was basically just Michigan State and Wisconsin fighting each other for it, which was interesting.
I'm not gonna lie. You said Upshaw, Hightower, Kirkpatrick. I got things moving in my downstairs just thinking about that. The team. I mean,
that was a disappointing season for them. They had lost 3 that year. I believe this might have been the Cam Newton.
Well, that was Cam Newton over. Cam Newton came back to win the Iron Bowl, and then Auburn beat Oregon in the national championship. In 2010, 2011. Yep, that was that year. But that team did get their rings. They did get their trophies in 2011.
Yeah.
In 2012.
Yeah. They went on to do great things, but we got the brunt of a Nick Saban bad season at the end of the year.
I will always remember fondly at the height of the Daniel Bryan Yes movement. So one of my favorite, do you know that one of my favorite bowl games ever is the Rose Bowl between Michigan State and Stanford?
No, I'm glad that you got to see that.
That's one of my favorite bowl games ever. I remember because it was a really nice day in Pittsburgh, and I was in the South Side of Pittsburgh during that game, and it was like just a beautiful day. I'm just watching this game, and I'm just like, this is like the best football ever. That was also the height of the Daniel Bryan Yes movement. And you guys were at because your basketball team was very good then too with Izzo, and they were doing the Yes chant before one of your games. So one of them was holding the big gold belt and the Rose Bowl trophy, and oh god, that was such a good game.
That was one of the greatest games that I never saw.
Why'd you never see it?
I had a prior engagement
with your wife
at a place called the Big House for something called the Winter Classic.
Oh,
so yeah. I obviously had to buy Winter Classic tickets, which was actually a lot of fun. It was I think to this day still might be the highest attended hockey game of all time. Probably. It was snowing, so that was a sick atmosphere. The game sucked because the ice was terrible with the snow. Yeah. But we Whiskey Joe and I had got tickets obviously like a year before. We had to win a lottery, and we actually had some college friends that were from Toronto, and that's who the Wings played. So it was a grand time, but of course the Winter Classic is played on the same day at the same time as the Rose Bowl. So when I realized Michigan State was going to be in the Rose Bowl, I obviously was already committed to the Winter Classic. So
yeah, it was one of the best games I've ever seen in my entire life. You didn't really miss much. So.
Yeah, I got to watch. So the Winter Classic ended. Ann Arbor, for having the Big House and 100,000 people, have a 2-lane road in and out of Ann Arbor. So it took 3.5 hours for us to be able to order an Uber. And mind you, it is snowing. And we've been outside for hours already. So there was like a little pizza shop that was close to the stadium. And we jumped in there to get warm, get some pizza. So I got to see about half of the third quarter. That was all I got to watch, and then got home to see the amazing fourth down historic movie stop.
It was a beautiful day in Pasadena that day, but I highly recommend. Like, that's one of those games that you can just go back and watch. There's a couple football games, couple bowl games that I feel like you can just go back and watch and relive. That was one of them for sure.
All right, why don't we get to our rankings?
Yes. And you know what? If you don't mind, given this so personal to you, I know I normally go first. Okay. I would like for you to go first this time.
Okay. Looks of the trophy. I think it is unique. I don't think it's anything extraordinary, so I won't say that. But I think in the grand scheme of trophies, especially that we've covered, and even the ones that I'm aware of that we have not covered yet, it is definitely unique. So I will give it a 4. So it's not my favorite as far as looks, but I think I like the uniqueness. I love that it has, a little bit of both teams' colors on it. I just probably wish it had to do with a little bit more with either the schools or the cities, states, etc.
We'll talk a little bit more about what you think it needs or what you would do differently at the end.
Sure.
For me, this is actually a 5. I think there's nothing else like this out there. So like uniqueness is big for me. And one thing I really like is just the detail of including the picture of the original Megaphone on it. If there's one thing I would change, it would potentially be that you just have it as like a megaphone that you carry around and that's it. But like I think having it on the stand with the picture I think is really cool. To show kind of like the history of it all. So I love it. I mean the uniqueness factor for it's a solid size megaphone. Like it's big. I mean megaphones aren't small by nature, but I think it's so cool. It's so unique. No one else has this, and the history behind it makes it that much richer, right? If you just throw out a bucket for, if Indiana and Purdue were to come up with the bucket now, it changes things. Coming up with a megaphone back in the day, the history of it, that again, this kind of goes in history a little bit, but I think that when it comes to looks, vintage works for me. So, and the only reason it's not the original vintage trophy is because they ran out of space. So I can go past that. So it's a 5 for me.
All right, 4.5 for me. You convinced me. I'm just thinking like when I think of the, I can get to it. History, yeah, I agree. The history is probably high. It's been around since the 40s. It's exchanged. It was annually for decades, and even when the teams have played sporadically, it still gets exchanged. So the history of it, I would have liked to know more. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of research. I'm glad the plaque, like I didn't even realize it until we were recording and I zoomed in, that I read the plaque and it actually had names of the designers. So I would have liked just a little bit more detail, like someone to tell that story of how these two, alumni associations hanging out in Detroit back in the 40s. That would have been like the bomb.
Yeah.
That would have been a place to be. So I would have loved a little bit more story. So I'm not going to dock it too much because it's just the lack of someone doing the research and telling the story versus the actual story itself. But I'll probably give that a 4.5 too, the history. So 4.5 and 4.5.
I'm actually with you on that. I like what I was going to give a 4, but I'm going to bump up half point because of what you said. Just the thought process of these people back in the 40s in Detroit, humming city, like it must have been really cool. Them just sitting around, hopefully over a couple beers, talk about this rivalry and just, be like, hey, we need a trophy, man. And, they come up with this. And to your point, the fact it has withstood the test of time, even though they don't play regularly, I think that's absolutely worth something for this trophy. Rivalry itself, Edmund.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just gonna 1,000% be my bias, but it's a 5. Like it behind Michigan, and that's why I was so annoyed with what happened in 2017 and what's just happened with Notre Dame in general with the Big Ten. This was it. Like I remember growing up, I was like an Irish fan. Like I remember my family. I think my dad still might have like a soft spot for Notre Dame, and I think that comes from like me growing up Catholic. I think a bit of that is the Catholicism, but like it's so close to Michigan. Like South Bend is very close. And honestly, over Ohio State for Michigan, like Michigan State was never on that upper echelon of Ohio State, so there really isn't that much animosity. But like Notre Dame. Hell yes. Like that was the game that I wanted to win the most behind Michigan. Like I hated Notre Dame's guts, still do to this day. So, and it's one of our rivalry trophies, one of our 4, but it's right there with, right behind Michigan, like a very close second.
So by the grace of God, this podcast gets a larger listening and we can invite some. I mean, I'd be totally fine revisiting some tropes because we're getting to season 4. It's best of the rest. Like we're gonna do D2, we're gonna do D3, but like by the grace of God, I'd love to invite some people on and talk a little bit more because there's so many times where we take a guess at what this rivalry means to people, and without you experiencing this rivalry and growing up with it, I would have no idea. And this actually is a nice segue because when I looked at the rivalries that Notre Dame has, not Michigan State, Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's an interesting school, right? They're independent. They play all types of schools. Current annual rivalries: Navy, which that dates back to forever ago; Stanford, which is interesting; USC, right? And then you get to historic rivalries: Army, Boston College, Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern. This is the part that's really interesting. Michigan State, Northwestern, Pittsburgh, Purdue, all these teams that are Midwest that are close to, Indiana. And that's where you get that blue collar Indiana mixed with the heavy Catholicism in the Rust Belt Midwest area that really, I think, paints the picture of like, okay, who does a Notre Dame fan really view as a rival, and also who do the other teams that are like close to that view as a rival? So I think that that's really interesting what you shared there, and therefore, far be it from me to poo-poo on your own experiences. So I'm gonna give it a 5 too. I would probably have ranked it much lower, but you really stirred the spirit in me. So I love hearing that.
I think like if you're an outsider, you don't realize that like they're so close, right? Like the state of Michigan and South Bend's in the northern part of Indiana. So they're it's like a recruiting battle, right? So it's not even that. Like you have recruiting battles that happen. I would say like if you were to ask a Notre Dame fan, my guess would be they probably don't like USC. That's probably the number one, right? And then beyond that, if I had to guess, it's probably Michigan because they had because of like the relevancy of the games, right? When they were playing, like Michigan State until D'Antonio, the games wouldn't have really been like high priority or anything for Notre Dame. They would have, likely just been ranked and we weren't. But like a Michigan and a Notre Dame would have had national implications probably on a regular basis, I had to guess. Again, until the D'Antonio era, and then the Michigan, kind of down part until Harbaugh came back, but. It's a big deal. I learned, and it makes total sense. Like Purdue and Notre Dame is also a very big rivalry because you have a bunch of kids at Purdue that are annoyed that they didn't get into Notre Dame, right? And they're both Indiana. So again, the competitiveness of those rivalries might not be high, but I think that still exists.
So let's get to the competitiveness of this rivalry.
I mean, I say it's a 5. I mean, you have the Spartans were only what would I say the original number was? It was 47 and 29. So what is that? An 18 point or an 18 game difference all time. And then once you get like once
they're not a farm school.
Yeah. Right. And they were allowed to have like money and scholarships. It's much closer, right? It's only what did I say? Oh no. A 6 game difference. So favoring Notre Dame. So it's very close. And these games, there's been a lot of classics. Obviously I outlined 2, one historic and one that I remember, but I'm honestly looking forward to it. I'm hoping by 2026, 2027, we're a bit more competitive and this game will actually mean something for both schools then too.
I'm with you. 5 and brings us tier.
Top tier.
Numbers don't lie.
And what would I change now that you really got me thinking about that now? I don't know. I think like the traditional reasons I was giving is trying to tie it to something Irish, something Spartan, something Michigan, something Indiana. But not. Okay, what would I change? Let's see here. It's a great question. And now that I've had some time, maybe a little extra time, maybe a little, this sounds a little awkward because I stopped mid-sentence. That's because someone had needed a potty break and paused without any
That was a secret.
segue.
That was a trust-free secret. Oh boy!
Well, it's going to be kind of awkward when I was mid-sentence and then all of a sudden
I paused. I told you. I said I paused it before you stopped talking.
But I didn't remember where I left off with my conversation. Yeah,
you know, they say, they say with Guinness, you know what they say with Guinness, you split the G. Well, I've split the Elijah Craig right there, split the label.
I think the only thing I would change is I would like it to not be attached to that or be removable from the base, because I think it is an absolute shame that the boys of the winning team can't, especially the ones of age, can't, chug a beer out of it at the end of the game. Just you know what I mean? Just like, on the field, you're talking with it. Oh, hey, go green, go white. And then once you get in that locker room, it's like, pour.
Oh my God. I didn't even see
how many you could fit in there. Yeah.
I didn't even elite. I didn't, you know what? I mean, here I was thinking about, like, what if like a Spartan teed off against a leprechaun? Like, what would that look like? A little tiny ass leprechaun and a Spartan. But you know what, man? I mean, that's chugging beers out of the megaphone. That would go crazy. That would absolutely go crazy. Oh man. That's really good. Yeah, to make it detachable so that you can yug some beers with the boys from it would be really good. Trying to think if there's anything else though. Spartans and Irish people, two cultures that historically clashed. Gosh, I didn't think you could do anything from like a historical war perspective. Although Trojans and Irish people didn't really clash, and they have a jeweled shillelagh, all the Irish people in Los Angeles. No, man. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I like the trophy and why I gave it a 5 is because of like no one has a megaphone, and I think that's so cool and a callback to that era. So I think you have to keep the megaphone. Like there's no. Making it detachable, I think, is the best thing that you can do, so you can run around the field and yell. But you have to keep the megaphone just because it is unique. It's a callback to a bygone era of football and cheerleading. I don't think, do they have megaphones on the sidelines? I guess they do. I guess Alabama does have megaphones on the sideline, but like it's just different now. So yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like the only thing changing being the detaching of it. So,
and this game will not be played this year, but I'm so happy to be able to tell you, if you hadn't heard already, that they did announce this year that they are renewing the series. Just a home and a home for now, but they are going to be in South Bend in 2026 and at Spartan Stadium in 2027. I know, of course, I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% sure that the first game is on my wife's birthday in 2026. And I asked her if she would like to spend her birthday in South Bend, which, is a big place to go in September. Anytime.
Oh, yeah.
What is working in my favor, though, is she just happens to have a very close friend who she doesn't get to see very often, who is from New York, but she is a big Notre Dame fan. And when I texted Bridget about this and was like, hey, you want to go see the Spartans? Because we used to actually watch the games together, and March Madness, our birthdays are very close, so I've watched quite a few sporting events with good old B Finn, and she's in.
Hey, real quick, shout out B Finn. Like, one of the coolest girls out there. If you are an individual looking for a partner, I would love to introduce you to our friend B-Fin. She is beautiful and witty and funny as the day is long. And I don't sound like her dad trying to like hook her up with someone, but like
exactly
gosh,
trying to do.
I mean, I love that girl so much. She's the very, very best. So shout out B-Fin. We love you.
She is in, and she has convinced my wife that it's not the worst thing in the world, and I have a sneaking suspicion she might be able to convince yours.
That's where I was kind of going with this. Yeah, that's well, I mean, the shout out to B-Fin stands strong, but yeah, if Bridget can convince my wife, that'd be dope as hell. I would definitely be down for that. Yeah, talk about one of the raddest girls on the planet. Like just. She's so cool, man. So all the best to you, B-Fin. You're a very lovely person. Thank you for preemptively convincing both our wives to take this trip to see the Megaphone. So, man, I even remember that one time. We'll just get into story time because I have more whiskey. Remember that one time we went to Clarendon and it was the Irish were playing Texas. Was that Texas's back night? Right?
Yeah.
Does the Irish play Texas? That was yeah. I thought I was getting my nights confused, but I'm pretty sure that was when the Irish played Texas. Bridget was wearing an Irish jersey. Texas beat them. That was Texas's back night. That was also when Alabama destroyed. Did they even win? Actually, I can't remember. All I remember is before that game, that was like this time of year 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago, EJ. It was exactly 10 years ago. I have to go back and look at our photos, but I think that was 10 years ago because we went out in Clarendon. I think it was almost 10 years ago to the date because the College Game Day was interviewing Alabama players, and they were talking about how through the month of September, other teams' offenses had ran a total of 6 plays in the red zone against Alabama. Like 6 plays across 4 games had run. And then I think that they did win that game thanks to the efforts of Jonathan Allen and Deshaun Hand. They won that game. Jonathan Allen went Superman over someone. And then that was actually the first night I introduced you to Pac-12 football because we were at an after party and Roger bought like champagne with fireworks. And I was like sitting on the couch in the club watching the TV. And you're like, why aren't you joining us? And I'm like, it's Pac-12 After Dark. Cal and Stanford is on right now. Don't bother me. That was the first time I introduced you to Pac-12 football. I think that might have been 10 years to the day. Because it's 2024. That would have happened in probably 2014, 2015.
That bar does not exist anymore. Shout out to RIP A-Town.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. We're old.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. If you guys are still listening at this point in time and haven't bailed on it.
It's a long episode. We're almost 2 hours in. Holy. Yeah.
So follow us on Instagram at whiskers.whiskies and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And join us next week when we talk about the Ben Swartzwalder Trophy. Ooh, I know. For Mike, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough.
Cheers, boys.